So at this time, we're going to be talking about mental health this morning. How many of us, oh, you made your way back, just in time. Okay, how many of us knows about mental health? When we say someone is mentally ill, what is our perception? What is our perception? Yes. Sorry? That person is sick. What is your perception if we say somebody is mentally ill? Yes, ma'am.
They have problems.
They have problems. Thank you. Yes.
They're not confident.
They're not confident. Yes. Body issues, exactly. Who else? Thank you very much for the, yes.
Concentrating issues.
Concentrating issues, exactly. Exactly. So you guys know even way more than the adults, some of the adults know about mental health, right? Because they would have given me some answers that are definitely not correct. But all the answers that you gave are definitely correct. So clap for yourselves for knowing that much about mental health. And what we're going to do today is, the aim is for us to just understand, right? We're not going to go too much deep into it. We're not going to pretend to be experts after leaving this room. But then what we want to leave here with is for us to understand basically what mental health is, okay? Or when we say someone is mentally ill, what it means. Now, when I asked or when I mentioned mental health, what I did hear was people laughing, right? Because of the perception that we have about someone who is mentally ill. But the truth is, mental illness is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Okay? So in the absence of these, then it means that there is an illness present. Right? In the absence of well-being, there is illness. Is that not true? Right? Are you with me? Okay, so please talk to me as we go along. Okay? So in the absence of wellness, there is illness. So in the absence where you are not able to cope with your stresses that comes on you, and it could be anything as starting a new school. That is a stressor, right? It could be anything as not understanding your assignment that is given to you. That can stress you out. It could be anything as your parents not understanding something that you're trying to get across with them. That could definitely be a stressor. Exactly. It could be as simple as you going through something and then trying to tell someone, seek for help, and that person really is not there with you. Therefore, it's stressing you out. Right? And then it's making you depressed. It's making you very anxious about the situation. And your inability to cope with these things, your inability to cope with relocation, moving from one place to the other. We've come to camp and some of us are feeling like we are strangers here because we didn't come with most of our friends that we are familiar with. That is giving us separation anxiety. If your parents did not come with you and you always used to being with your parents, right? So at this point you're having that separation anxiety going on. And your inability to cope with it can lead to mental illness. Okay? Just like any other illnesses. If we talk about diabetes, if we talk about hypertension, we have the stages of it. So when we say that somebody is mentally ill, it doesn't mean that they've reached the apex of their illness. It could be from the starting point. It is very important that it is recognized early and treated early. Because if we do not recognize it, and then it gets worse, it makes it difficult to treat. So now, let's talk about some of the general conditions that we are aware with. Who knows about hypertension? By the raise of hands, if you know anything about hypertension, anything at all? Nothing? Okay, that is fine. Do you know anything about diabetes? Okay, good. What else do you know? What other condition do you know about? Yes? Asthma? Thank you. Yes? Cancer? HIV, thank you.
AIDS.
AIDS, yes. Yes. PTSD, thank you. Flu. Okay, so at this point, let's talk about some of the ones that you mentioned. Somebody mentioned asthma. Asthma occurs whenever there is an irritant to the body, right? Where your body cannot easily adjust to the irritation that is going on. Then you can have an asthmatic attack, right? So something causes the asthma. When you have diabetes, whether it is type 1 or type 2, if it's type 1, you're born with it, okay? If it's type 2, you get it as you grow. So if you have type 1 diabetes, you're born with it. So can you also have a mental illness that you are born with? So somebody did mention learning disabilities, right? So that is something that you could be born with. We also have some that are brought on due to external stresses. So like diabetes, if you are exposed to the risk factors, or if you do have the risk factors, then you'll be prone to having type 2 diabetes. In the same vein, if you are exposed to the risk factors for having mental illness, then you could also have a mental illness. Do we understand up to that point? Okay. So let's build on what we know, and then we'll get to learn more. Okay? So follow with me, and then we'll get there. So anything at all can lead to a mental illness. Hence, if somebody is having any mental illness at all, as many as they are, if someone is having any of it, it is not anything that they did, it is not necessarily anything that their parents did, it is not necessarily anything that their environment did, but what it also means is it could be from any of these three or other reasons for which they haven't that. Okay? So anything at all such as chemical imbalance in the brain can lead to mental illness. That Xbox, right? And then they give you the excuses why they cannot buy it. And then you feel like, man, I wish I had that money to buy what I really needed. Have you ever thought that way before? Exactly. So when we need something and we're not getting it, and then we feel like we really needed it, but still we're not getting it, and they're stressing us, what we do is we throw a tantrum. Right? You guys all do that? Or done it before? Yeah. Okay. So when we do that, then we are doing that to express our displeasure with whatever is going on. When it continues over a period of time, what you could end up with is oppositional defiant behavior. Right? Somebody said A, which means I have to break it down. So what that means is someone that is opposing everything that is the status quo. So what I mean by that is, this is what your parents expect you to do, but then you're going to oppose it and not do it. Okay? So you become oppositional to whatever they tell you to do, and you also become defiant to the norms of the house. Okay? And that is what is called oppositional defiant behavior. You can write that one down, and then when you go, you throw some words at your parents and they're not that smart, right? Okay. So that is what you can end up with when you're not getting the right things, and then you are not able to adjust to that stress very well. Okay? You remember we talked about your inability to cope with normal stresses that could lead to mental illness. Right? Other thing is academic stress. Anytime you have an exam coming up, how do you feel? You feel confident? Good, because you meant it. You feel what? Nervous? Did someone say nervous? And nervous at the same time. Exactly, you have both of that going on. Sometimes you are in school, and then there's a subject that is being taught, and you're really struggling to understand it. Has it ever happened to any one of us? Okay, exactly. It happens to me all the time. all the time, especially when it comes to chemistry and math and all that. Yeah, definitely. I know it's very easy for others, but what is easy for me too might be difficult for some people, right? We're all not the same, okay? So when we in class and then they teach you something that especially supposed to be easy for everybody else, and I'm struggling with it, what happens is I really don't want to be the one to say, sir, I don't understand. Then the whole class will be like, man, right? So then I'll just be quiet and sit. Then the teacher will finish and leave the class, give us a homework, and really I did not understand, therefore I cannot even do my homework. And then I go home and start stressing about it, and then take it on my parents, right? So some of the stresses that we can have is academic stresses. The next one is relationship. It could be relationship with your friends, with your brothers, with your sisters, or with your parents. Okay? So any of these relationships can cause stress on us. It could be as simple as that person that you thought that was your very good friend, was your bestie, now is not replying your text messages.
Oh.
Right? Then it's like, man, I thought Francis was my friend, and we always hang out together in the break room, and now he doesn't want to sit by me anymore. That's very depressing, isn't it? But then at least they're not sitting by you anymore. They're not talking to you like they used to. So when all of this happens, it makes you feel like, what did I do wrong? And then when we're talking about what are some of the conditions that we know about, somebody said self-esteem, right? Or body image, or not believing in yourself. And that is what tends to happen. Then it's like, what did I do wrong? Is it because I'm fill in the blank, right? So it could be, is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm from a Ghanaian descent? Is it because I am not too smart in class? Or is it because I'm too smart so they don't want to hang out with me anymore? I hope it's that one, right? Right. So it could be any reason at all. And then once that happens, then we tend to have some issues of our own because of that stress. Now, let's look at some statistics that are out there, okay? It will interest you to know that 1 in 4 are affected by some kind of mental illness. So if we take any 4 people, 1 out of them is likely to have a mental illness, okay? 1 in 30 experience PTSD, and someone did mention PTSD also. When we say that someone has PTSD, first they have to have had the trauma. Then you have the post-traumatic stress, right, disorder. So there has to be the trauma, which could be something that happened at school, which could also include physical, emotional, sexual, and all the abuses that are out there, okay? So anytime somebody is exposed to any of these, they could have that trauma. And then when they have the post-traumatic stress, which means that they keep reliving that experience, that bad experience that they had, they keep reliving it. They have nightmares because of that, right? So what he's saying is that 1 in 30 will experience PTSD. People of color are have less access to care. And when we talk about people of color, it means people like us, right, are less likely to have access to care. Part of the reasons is that because of where we live. That is 1. 2, because of the cultural background. If you are to have a depressive moment, I'm not saying you're clinically depressed, you are to have a depressive moment, some period where you feel very down, you feel like nothing is going for you, you feel so sad after a period of time, and you try to tell your parents about how you feel it, what is usually the response that you get? You what? Now say it out.
You're fine.
You're fine. They downplaying it, right? What else? You'll be okay. not acknowledging it. Yeah? Stop being a baby, but then really going through it. Pray. Yes. Those are some of the answers that you always get. But then, yes, prayer is the answer to everything, but yet when Jesus came, there are some instances recorded in the good book that tells us of when the people took their children, took their old ones to Christ. They didn't just sit at home and pray. Right? So there are times where we have to actually go to a therapist. God is still working through so many mysterious ways. Okay? Let's write down our questions. Let me finish and then we'll ask all the questions. Is that okay? Okay. The next one is children with anxiety disorders are least to receive treatment. And do you know why? Because of the reasons that you just gave. Because if you are to tell your parents, they're really not going to buy into it. They're going to be in denial. They're not going to recognize your pain. They don't really understand what you're talking about. Therefore, it's least likely for them to take you to the hospital to get treatment. Right? The next one is suicide is the third leading cause of death in America. That is very powerful. Third leading cause of death. But then the things that we do know about are cancer, among others. But then depression and other mental illnesses are killing a lot of people. A lot. Thank God that we do know God, and therefore we're not going to plan on taking our lives ever. But then what also happens is, if we really don't get into it, then we're really going to suffer in silence. And that is what we have to break. Okay? So that's the purpose why our leaders have put such a thing together for us, so that we can understand some of the things that we have to do to be able to help in getting out of those stigmas. Okay? So at this point, I hope we brought our pencils and pens. No? Man, how do you come to camp? Okay, someone please help me out, because if I have to do it by myself. Really? Let's see. Okay, if you don't have one, that is fine. What we're going to do is sharing is caring. So anybody that has one, do you guys have any on this table? Okay, here. Okay, because you don't have... Okay, guys, please.
I'm going to finish it in 5 minutes.
You're going to finish it in 5 minutes? All right, I'll find you another pen. Here you go. Okay, because we don't have enough pens and pencils, listen, please, listen.
Are you contradicting? How do you find personal disorders?
So you forgot me. I need a paper.
Okay. Are we out of it? Did they all finish? Okay, this is what we're going to do. To begin with, we don't have enough pens and pencils around. So listen, please. What we're going to do is let's get together. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll take this, so you guys please get together and do on one sheet, so that those there can also get some. Okay? So let's get together and then get it done as quickly as we can. It's okay to do a group work. Let's get together and do it. Let's do it in a group.
Yeah,
I have a question.
I just need to
mental illnesses occurs before we get beyond 40 years old. So for those of us here, we are all prone to any kind of mental illness. Right? Okay. Now, we already mentioned some of the stresses. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and show you a video. And the reason for showing you this video is for you to see that some of these are very real. Now, please, I want you to read and read to yourself. So I'm not going to read it out to you. There's a sound underneath it, but the sound is just instrumental. It's not talking about the issues. So please, let's be very quiet so that we can read. Yes, sir. Oh, the light. If you can get quiet. Okay, did we get the instructions? No talking, please. No talking. And we're going to talk about this after that, after the video, okay? You got it. You got it. Thank you. All right. So now, let's please be quiet and read. We're going to read with our eyes, not our lips. Please. Thank you. So I think we're getting the point. You want to keep going?
And then they think the one that has
Alright guys, if you want to continue watching them, please let's keep the noise down. You know? Okay.
You get the point.
So this guy was only 8, we've seen 7, we've seen 10, we've seen 11. Wow. 12. Right? So this is where the world in which we live. Alright. So now we've seen all these, right? The goal for this was not to get us depressed, sad, or emotional. But the goal was for you to see that it is real. Yes. Yeah, right. So the goal was for you to see that these are really real and people are really suffering and dying because of the pain that they're going through because of their disorders. Did we see a common theme running through it? Hanging, bullying. Yes. Hold on, guys. Guys, there are some points that I want us to take out of this, so let's get to that. She said bullying, yes. Bullying online. What is that? Cyberbullying. Hanging themselves. Disorders. Family loss. Okay, so now let's look at these, right? So let's look at these. The first thing is that they were being bullied. Let's start with this actually. They were all under the age of 14. So when I talked about the diagnosis, mental health diagnosis, being diagnosed before the age of 14, I know some of you in here were questioning how is that possible, right? So you see the victims of mental health diagnosis, right? So now, let's get to the second one, bullying. Whether it is cyber or whether it is in person, it is something that should not be tolerated at all. And the truth about bullying is that we're always going to have some bad people around that are going to bully others. But what I want to tell you is the other things that are listed down there that you can use to help protect yourself and also to have a better self-esteem, that when somebody is trying to bully you because of your race, because of your accent, because of where your parents come from, because of where you live, then you know that you're worth way more than that. Okay? So now, let's get into the other things. Hanging, using the gun. Okay? These are teens, regular teens that had their life going on for them until they started being bullied for the most part. What I entreat of us to do is, please, let us not be part of the bullying. Okay? Let us not be a part of the problem. And how you can be a part of the problem is, one, directly doing it. So directly picking on someone, directly just taunting someone, directly making someone feel bad about themselves because of one reason or the other. Please, as children of God, let us not get into that habit. The other how we can help is, if you see someone doing it, please say something about it. This is not snitching, this is saving someone's life. Okay? And you saw it. People are seriously going through a lot of pain. These are a minute section of those that actually committed suicide. There are so many others that have ended their lives because of that. So please help save someone's life by saying something. Tell that your friend to stop bullying the other person. Tell someone, tell your teacher, tell someone, please, and help save someone's life. If not, that person is going to either be afraid of even coming to school. Let's start with that one. They don't even want to come to school because Emanuela is going to tease them. He's going to pick on them. Right? I just mentioned that name. I don't know. That's what came to my mind. So it's not anybody in here. Okay? So that just makes someone not want to come to school. Left alone, they come to school and they don't want to associate with anyone because they are being told that they are being too thin, too short, too tall, whatever. And whatever you are, people are still going to talk about it. So just accept that this is who I am and I'm perfectly made in the image of God. Okay? Please, let's stop that one. The next thing is seek treatment if you're having a hard time coping with things. So if at any point in your life, it might not be right now, at any point in your life, if you ever feel like you need someone to talk to, you need treatment whatsoever, please look for treatment. At this point, I understand that it has to go through your parents, but please let them understand, either they give you that kind of help, or they will still not be happy because you're not happy. And you know very well that if you're not happy, then your parents are not happy, right? Yeah, because it can definitely be a thorn in their flesh, right? So please, let's talk to our parents. Let's let them know what we're going through. Talk to the counselors at school. Talk to someone, and please seek help. Listen, you talking about your mental illness is not a sign of weakness. It is not a sign to say that you are not strong enough. If I really do need help, it is me that needs the help, not the impression, the thought, or perception of anybody else around me. I would rather be cool and be sound, and for people to think otherwise of me, than for me to be struggling and people will think that I'm okay. There is no benefit in that to you. Believe in yourself. And I've repeated this more than 4 times for those who are keeping account of it. You are wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God. So it doesn't matter, and it should not matter what somebody tells you or thinks of you to be. If somebody tells me I'm too slow, I get it. So what? It's none of your problem. It's mine. If you tell me that, Philip, you're going bored, thank you for letting me know, but I care less. Right? If you tell me that I don't have a 6-pack, so what? I can keep my 0-pack. Okay? So I am not going to be like my brother right here, where the way he's made is to where he doesn't work too hard to have a 6-pack. For me, I gotta live a lot of mentors, man, before I can even get to 2. And I'm not ready to kill myself for no 6-pack. Okay? So if you're a lady and someone tells you about your weight, your size, anything at all, please understand that it is okay to be different. We're all not going to be the same. We're all not going to look the same. We're all not going to talk the same. So either way, I am who I am, and I believe in who I am. Because I, once again, please, with me, wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God. Please, let's repeat that. I am wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God. Let's go once again. Please, everybody. No. 1, 2, 3, and there we go. 1, 2, 3.
I am wonderfully and fearfully made.
Thank you. Not all of us join. I said everybody. So down, everybody. So for that reason, let's understand that it is okay to be different. Okay? Now, the other thing which we have going for us, that is why most of us were doing and don't understand why they won't commit a suicide because somebody is telling them something different, is because of our spirituality. We do know God, therefore we do know that that is very wrong. We do know God, therefore we do know that for everything we have to seek Him in prayer. We do know God, therefore we do know that for everything we have to go to Him in prayer. Not everyone do know God. And even for those who do know God, sometimes it comes the time where they start to question their faith in God. Right? So listen, we're almost done. We're coming to the end of it. So please, let's make sure that we are helping those that need help, and that we are defending the weak, and we are also staying healthy. If you need help, it is okay to seek for a therapist. Anybody has any questions? Anybody has questions? Any question at all on the presentation that we have done? Yes. We'll take that one later. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, yeah, this one I definitely do. Okay, any questions? Okay, in the absence of any questions, I do believe that we definitely did understand. Oh, yes, ma'am. Please, let's be quiet. I can't hear her.
And they've had a counselor, but still, what is the best thing for that person? What is the best thing for the person?
Okay, so your question was if somebody is going through depression and they have a counselor, but then they are still going through depression.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are two forms of treatment of depression. One is the therapy, which is the psychotherapy, and then the other one is medication. Okay? One thing I've realized in the African community is that a lot of parents think, for some reason, if you take any antidepressant or any antipsychotics, then there's something wrong with you. Right? Okay. No, side effects, let me tell you what. Tylenol has side effects. Aspirin has side effects.
Every medicine.
Every medicine, period. Let's keep it like that. Every food actually also has side effects. Right? So let's get to that one. Let me finish her question. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please. Alright, so to your question, if therapy alone is not doing it, then we have to add medication to it. So at this point, you have to seek with a practitioner and then medication management. Yes. There are so many of it. At this point, I really don't like to call out medications when I'm doing presentations because I don't want to leave here and then you go into your mother's cabinet and then you find a medication and then you start taking it. Right? So even with the adults, I don't talk about one medication, but there are so many. The point is, just like with any condition, there's no one medication that treats it. So if one doesn't work for you, there are other options that they can easily switch you to, and you should be okay. All right? Anybody has any questions, concerns? Okay, so on that note, we do understand that we have to help others if they're in need. And secondly, let us always realize we are wonderfully and fearfully made in the image of God.